Hi, this is Fred from Profile, and today I'm talking with one of my favorite artists, Robin Armstrong. How are you doing, Robin?
Hey, not so bad. Good to see you, Fred.
Wow, six studio album in 8 years. The new project, the Amen Dreams, will be released on July 14th. First, congratulations, but tell me how you can manage to do six album in 8 years.
Well, it's a good question. Um, I'm not sure myself, to be honest. I've dedicated a lot of time to it. I mean, I don't do this full time at all. I mean, I have a day job as well. So really, really, the music side just takes every other sort of free time that I have, really. So most sort of evenings and weekends, if I'm not actually doing the music, I'm thinking about it or thinking lyrics or concepts or something to do with it. So yeah, it's been pretty consistent for the last sort of eight years really,
Yeah.
and particularly busy this year and last year because I sort of did two in 2 years, which was quite a tall order really.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
there's some health issues as well.
Yeah, I had last year. I had a problem with a tumor on my right arm, which was sort of playing my picking arm, and I've had neck problems for a long time, but it was always been misdiagnosed. They always had it down as a neck problem instead of something else. But I had a new doctor last year, and he spotted a big sort of lump underneath my arm that was getting bigger. I had sort of various tests on that, and eventually they found a tumour under there, which was right on the radial nerve, which sort of altered sensation down to the hand. So I was really lucky to get referred to a specialist at one of the big hospitals here in the UK, and they took care of it basically, and I had a really quick recovery. So I got into just as I finished the last album, that happened, and I was really pleased that I sort of got back into writing almost straight
Yeah.
away after the operation. So and it just became stronger and stronger, and got to a stage where I could sort of play the guitar properly again. So
Yeah.
yeah, it went well. Yeah.
Yeah, good thing. Um, the details about the concept of the new album is available on your website, Bandcamp, and all that. But for the
Yeah.
benefit of our viewers, would you mind expanding a little bit about
Yeah,
the
no
the
problem.
story and how it relates to your own family story as well?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've sort of visited before. I did an album back in 2011 called When Age It's Done Its
Yep.
Duty, which was about sort of growing old and family and the loss of family and that sort of thing. And that family in that album was based on my mum's side. And this album, I just wanted to have a look into sort of family history on my dad's side, and some interesting things sort of came up really. One of which was that my great grandfather was he was like a farm labourer and a gamekeeper, so he looked after large forests and farmland back in the sort of 1890s or something like that.
Uh,
Um, and so I did a little bit of research on that, and I just wondered. He died quite early and left quite a big family. I think he died at 27 and left a family of five. And I thought it was just a really sad story that he really didn't get to live a very long life. So
yeah.
it got my imagination working about, well, how would he be felt about that? And I've just came up with this idea of him sort of becoming a scarecrow. So his wife built
Yeah.
this sort of scarecrow to remember him by. And that sort of scarecrow takes on like a sort of dreamlike sort of state where it becomes sentient and starts to think about his past life and the life that he might have had he lived longer. And he's just looking back on things that happened really. So it's a nice sort of simple, not particularly
Yeah.
detailed concept, and it's more about the songs really in the album. So it was really a nice sort of theme to present the songs with.
Yeah.
So that's really where it came about. Yeah.
Who did the cover?
Yeah, I did it myself actually. Yeah,
Oh wow.
I've done the last two covers myself. This one and the Unreasonable Silence. I'm not a digital artist by any means, but I think I've just sort of got lucky with these ones really, and just started with a lot of images. I've took lots of images from lots of different places,
Okay.
And got inspired by those, and then started to be influenced and sort of start to take things from other images and pull them together, you know, and manipulate things. And I just get lucky sometimes that things after a long period seem to fall into place.
Yeah. Well, it looks good.
Yeah, I was really pleased how it came out. It just created the mood really of a sort of quite a sort of dark sort of image, yeah, which I like. It appeals to me, that sort of darker side. It looks like it could have come from an Opeth album or something like that, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah.
How would you say this album stacks up with the previous five?
It's much more. I think it's less complicated in terms of the concept. I mean, I've always gone for fairly heavy and complicated concepts, really. Particularly on the previous album, The Unreasonable Silence. I think that was almost too far, really. It was very detailed, very quite a difficult album to understand, I think, in where I was going with it. This one, I think, I just kept it quite simple. So it's more about the songs themselves. I mean, it was always designed to fit into an LP size, so 45 minutes, and it fitted nicely with 3 songs per side.
Yeah, vinyl, yeah.
And I wanted each song really to stand up on its own. I didn't really have that need that I've had with previous albums where one song follows the other and it tells a story. That wasn't really needed on this album. All the songs needed to sort of stand up in their own right. But there were just sort of 6 little vignettes, if you like, or little stories that fitted the central theme. So musically, maybe I sort of went around that. I mean, it's much more vintage sounding than previous Cosmograf albums. I mean, there's all the instruments on this are pre sort of 75 or emulations of pre 75 instruments, particularly on the keyboards.
Okay.
So it's quite a vintage classic rock sounding album. Maybe not as proggy as previous albums, with one exception. I think the second track, Trouble in the Forest, is quite a proggy sort of sound to it. But
my favorite.
So yeah, so I think a lot of the tracks the influences are very clear as well, whereas maybe they weren't quite so clear with previous. Probably the previous albums were more influenced by prog bands, whereas this album's been more influenced by classic rock bands from my youth. So bands like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Bad Company, Whitesnake, those sort of classic rock bands have really sort of influenced me on this album. So it's a different sort of sound, different feel.
Yeah. I know this question is not easy to answer, but and you don't need much introduction anymore in the prog world, but if somebody doesn't know anything about your music, how would you describe it?
It's really. I mean, I get quite sort of. I'm not a big person for genres. I get quite annoyed with how people try and put prog into sort of very subdivided boxes. You know, to me, it's just rock or prog, whatever what you want to call it, but it's I think what's different and what's particularly how I describe my music really is that everything is built around themes, and I think the common theme to all of the albums is they deal with the human condition. So I like some bands write about, you know, sort of ethereal things or love or all that sort of, you know, or political issues, or I think my thing is that I write about things that are common to all humans. So it's your position and your role within the world and how you see it, how you view that position. So all of the albums in some way deal with that sort of idea of how you relate to and how you think about the world around you, how you respond to it.
Yeah. How do you select musicians that will collaborate on your projects?
That's a good one. I mean, it's a bit of a mixture, really. So some have been colleagues and friends that I've met along the journey, really, of doing this, and others, musicians that I really admire, and I've just had to have them on the album, and I've sort of gone and approached them and said, you know, as almost basically as a fan. So people like Colin Edwin, Nick Beggs, you know, so very important musicians and with big careers themselves. And I sort of approached them and said, you know, I'm a huge fan, and I'd really like you to. I think your sound would sound great on my record as well. Would you sort of consider doing it? And so it's worked a little bit that way, and I've been lucky with a few people like that. But others like Kyle, who plays drums on the last album. Kyle's, you know, not a particularly famous musician in his own right, but he's someone that is very well. I respect very much as an excellent drummer, and he is just someone I really felt could do this album a real justice and would be perfect for this album. So it's not necessarily a case of just grabbing the biggest sort of stars that you can find in the prog world. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but there's a mixture also of getting people that you know will be perfect for the, you know, perfect for the part as well.
Yeah. Well, talking about musician, you gave Rachel Hall a bigger role on this album. Can you talk a little bit about her and what she brings to the table?
Yeah, sorry, do you mean Rachel Hall or Rachel Horn? Rachel Horn did the sort of vocals and
Hall, H-A-L-L.
Oh, the violin, yeah, on the violin part. So yeah, she did the great sort of end solo basically on the last track, Hey Man. Yeah. And it was just really great to get her. You know, I mean, violin is something I've never tried on a Cosmograf album before.
Exactly.
So it's an instrument that's a little bit out of the classic rock canon, really, and also prog, really. So I'm a huge fan of Big Train and what they do. So it was a bit of a thrill to get her to contribute something to this album, really, because I thought that track in particular was a little bit going towards what Big Train do. So there's a sort of pastoral sort of feel to that track. Which I think really lent itself to a violin sound, and I thought that would be a perfect way to sort of to end, you know, towards the end of that track. There's a bit of like a sort of guitar and the violin sort of duel, if you like, towards the end of there, which is quite nice, I think. Just just a nice way to bring that track to a conclusion. Yeah,
it's very nice indeed. Yeah. You've already mentioned that you always preferred writing concepts.
Yeah.
Why?
I think I've been asked this before. I think a lot of it is because I'm a big fan of film, and I just have this thing about maybe being a bit of a frustrated film director. So I haven't got the tools to make the films or the people to make the films, but I can do it in music. So yeah, I'm sort of imagining as I'm writing the music. In order to get inspired, I think I've got visual images going in my head about how this would look if it was made into a film, and I think that I find that very helpful to imagine how the track will play out or the album will play out. Is imagining how almost like a video running in your head of the film. So I think, you know, that why I write it that way is I think it just because I find it the most inspiring way to write, rather than just picking the guitar up and trying different chords out. Yeah. I'm sort of playing things that I think sound dramatic, as if there was a video running or playing it to a film. So it's just something that goes on in my imagination to help me write that way, and I just think I just enjoy the whole themes of albums and the feeling you get from them, the atmosphere a lot, and building that sort of not just the music but also the whole atmosphere that sits behind the album. I think is really important as a sort of experience, really.
Can you talk to us about the Trees, your own home studio?
Yeah, I mean, the Trees was something I started. It sort of started right at the beginning of the Cosmograf story, really. I had this sort of area of waste ground at the end of my garden, and a friend sort of said that would be perfect. Came around and said that'd be perfect for a small studio, and I sort of looked at him and thought, no, it's not going to work. It's going to be a lot, you know. And he sort of went off, and a couple of weeks later, I thought, yeah, that's a really good idea. And I just, because I'm quite handy with sort of DIY, it's something I like to do as well. And I just sort of started, and I thought this is going to work. And I just built it myself. I built a purpose-built frame sort of building, like a sort of almost like a shed, really, but then sort of specced it out with soundproofing material and all this sort of stuff. And it's, you know, it's not big. It's around about sort of 15 foot by 10 foot, so sort of 5 by 3, something like that. it's pretty well soundproofed. It's good enough for mixing it. You can't do drums in there; it's too small, and it's probably not soundproofed well enough for that. But it's good enough for mixing, and you can track in there. And yeah, I've had that now for the last sort of 6 years or so, and it's where I sort of do everything really, other than sort of doing the drums. So I go to Orbit Studios, which is over in Southampton, to do the drum tracking. But everything else, mixing, everything else tends to get done in my own studio there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. What about Cosmograf? The name, why not just your own personal name?
A couple of reasons for that. I mean, the reason for not using my own name was that it's quite a popular name that I've got, and I just felt that it wouldn't stand out anywhere. And there was already a couple of musicians that were sort of active with Robin Armstrong as their name, and I thought this is not going to work, and I'm not really going to sort of get anywhere as sort of working under that name. Cosmograf was a name that I was using under when I was sort of active on a number of forums. I used to be into cars a lot, and I used to use that sort of moniker or avatar, Cosmograf, because I was in my day job is I actually I restore vintage watches. So a famous vintage watch is the Rolex Cosmograf, which is spelled PH on the end. So I thought, oh, I'll just take the PH off and put F on the end. And that became, it stuck really, and that's just a name that I've been sort of associated with for a long time really. So I quite like the way it sort of feels like it feels like a pseudonym. It feels like just another name for me, but it also gives the impression of sometimes of being a band as well, and I like the way that works. It can mean either or really. It can mean my recording name as a project, or it can actually mean the band. So when we do bigger things, we have more members, it's going to mean it's a band as well. Yeah. So it works both ways.
It has a vintage tone to it as well.
Yeah, right? Yeah, and also I think it's if you go back to the origins of the word, I think it has a sort of like an astronomical sort of connotation as well. That Cosmograph. I can't remember what language it originally sort of originates from, but I think some of the meaning is in like a sort of someone who views the heavens or the the stars or whatever. So it has a sort of feel to it as well. Yeah.
What's the short and medium terms plans for yourself?
That's a good one actually. When I come to the end of an album, I get into a bit of a small sort of dip really. You get the excitement of getting the record out there, and you sort of get into a little bit of as the sort of excitement calms down from the release. You get into a little bit of a slump, and you don't quite know where to go next really. So I suspect I'll just get back into writing quietly and just sort of write a few things and see how that develops, and then the excitement will start to build again for the next one. But so I'd really like to, do something totally different to this album. This album's quite vintage, but I think the next one I think would be much more contemporary and probably a lot heavier as well. That's what's in the back of my mind at the moment. So I'm sort of experimenting a little bit with new sound sets, new instruments, that sort of thing, and just going through a learning process to see what sounds are really exciting me at the moment, and working through that process before I start to write new tunes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and we'll have to see how it goes. But I'd also like to get a bit more into producing as well, because I really enjoy mixing, and I've got an idea for I'd like to start to mix and produce for other people as well, which I think would be quite exciting. So I'm looking at that sort of side of things as well.
Yeah, that's cool. We're almost at the end already, but
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever watched Profil's interviews, but we like to ask quick one-word answer questions at the end.
Yeah.
So if you're ready.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right. One word to describe the new album, the Hey Man Dreams.
Vintage.
The instrument you enjoy playing the most?
Guitar.
One artist you wish you could, or one artist you wish would participate in your project?
Oh, that's really easy. Stephen Wilson.
Stephen Wilson. Your favorite Cosmograf song?
Oh, that's really hard. Probably The Man Left in Space, because I think it's the one that people probably most identify me with. Yeah.
I love it. One song you wish you had written?
Oh, that's a hard one. Yeah, something like Anaesthetize, I think, but on Fear of a Black
Oh,
Planet by Porcupine Tree. Something like a
Porcupine Tree.
monster epic like that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Pop, jazz, or blues?
Blues.
Blues. Genesis or Pink Floyd?
Pink Floyd, definitely. Yeah.
What album you've been playing quite a bit lately in your MP3 player?
Oh, that'll be Roger Waters' new one. Title's just completely gone out of my head.
Yeah.
But,
I
yeah,
have to look.
yeah.
Which country is Cosmograph biggest fan base, do you think?
It's probably the UK. It's quite a difficult one actually. I'm not entirely sure. It probably is the UK, but I believe we've got quite a big fan base in France and Germany as well. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much for accepting the invite. Thank you for talking to us. It was honest pleasure. I had a blast. I wish you best of luck with the new album that will be released on June 14th, so it's like a week from now.
Yeah, yeah, week. It's not long to go. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Anything you would like to say before I let you go?
No, I think that's it. And just thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about it. And yeah, yeah.
Great. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Fred. Thanks.
See ya.